Good evening and welcome. It's Friday, it's 8 o'clock, and that means it's time for Buster's Virtual Jazz Club. That's right, yes, we're live streaming around the world to infinity and beyond on YouTube. I hope you had a great week, and I'd like to say a big thank you to all my regular patrons and who subscribe and support me through Patreon, and also to everyone who makes a donation on PayPal. It really means a lot, and it's been a massive help this year, and thank you for all your lovely messages as well. Don't forget to visit my website, and the link is just below here, this Buster Birch / Virtual Jazz Club, where you can watch all of the past shows and see who my upcoming guests will be. So on to tonight's show, and as always, I've got a fantastic guest this evening. She's a British Bahraini trumpet player who seeks to blur the lines between jazz and electronic sound design, bringing together the sounds of her mixed heritage and what's been described as psychedelic Arabic jazz, which is intoxicating and compelling. She has led her various ensembles in performances across the UK and Europe and further afield, including Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, Tunisia, Algeria, Bahrain, Kuwait, America and Canada. She has also played at major festivals such as WOMAD, Love Supreme, the New York City Winter Jazz Festival and Pori Jazz in Finland, which is one of the oldest jazz festivals in Europe. She has sold out concerts at Jazz in the Round, King's Place, the Jazz Cafe, the Purcell Room and the Church of Sound. Her career is studded with high-profile collaborations which have seen her record and perform with the likes of Radiohead, Lee Scratch Perry, Transglobal Underground, Sushila Rahman, Tarek Yamani, Amel Zen and a world tour with these New Puritans. As a guest soloist and composer, she's performed with Arturo Farrell's Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra, the Cambridge University Jazz Orchestra, the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, the National Youth Orchestra of Scotland and the Guildhall School of Music and Drama Jazz Orchestra. She's received many commissions to write new music from various organisations such as Tomorrow's Warriors, the PRS, Jazz Lines in Birmingham, the Ligeti Quartet, the Open University, Jazz FM and the New York Festival of New Trumpet Music. She was a London Symphony Orchestra Sound Hub composer in 2016 when she explored writing music for a newly developed quarter-tone flugelhorn. I'm going to ask her about that tonight. She has produced several albums of her own music as well, which have received critical acclaim and have been featured on many best-of lists around the world. Several of her compositions have been remixed by some of Europe's most eminent electronic music DJs, which has enabled her music to reach new audiences. She's also collaborated with some very fine artists to create some striking artwork for her albums, which have been used on Apple iPhone ads. She's been nominated for many awards and last year won both Album of the Year and UK Jazz Act of the Year at the Jazz FM Awards for 2020. And I'm pleased to say she's here with us now, live on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the very wonderful Yazz Ahmed. Hi Yazz, how you doing? Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you.
You too, and well, we appreciate you sharing your, giving up your evening and sharing your time and all your lovely music. And you've been doing incredibly well, and it's absolutely wonderful to see how well you've been getting on and the things you've achieved in the last few years. It's absolutely stellar what you've achieved. It's been quite a ride, I'd imagine, and I'm sure there's plenty more to come. And since we played that gig in Belfast a few years ago, it's been brilliant seeing you. I'm just really pleased to see you getting on so well because you really deserve it.
Thank you.
And one of the things I usually start off with is talking about the last very strange year we've had. Well, it's literally a year now, isn't it? So that's a kind of anniversary for a lot of us for our gigs. And I know you're not one to sit idle. So can you tell us a bit about what you've been getting up to? I know we've got a track we're going to play from your Boiler Room lockdown sessions, which I'm looking forward to playing. But have you been using the time to compose, write, and collaborate? What have you been doing?
I've been doing so much. I mean, first of all, when the lockdown was announced, I was so frightened. All of my work completely disappeared, all my live work. And felt really bewildered, didn't know what to do. But thankfully, a lot of people out there wanted to, create music. Promoters wanted musicians to do concerts at home, and other people wanted to commission musicians. So it was really nice. Lots of people reached out, and I got to do lots of composing, collaborations. I have a studio at home, so I can record and send my trumpet parts across the world. So and I've been carrying on being creative. I've got lots of projects up and coming as well. So always planning. But I'm very grateful and thankful, for all of this work that's come along during this time of pause, because it's kind of kept me sane, just about.
Yeah, well, you've had an amazing output, like I say, the last few years, and it's clear to hear, well, certainly to a lot of people, that you've really found your voice, and you've developed this incredible kind of mix of your different influences for your music, and you've created this incredible sort of sound that you've developed, and is now completely, obviously, fully formed now, and you're producing all this incredible work. And I just wondered, like, perhaps you could talk a little bit about how that, it's because none of these things happen overnight or in a vacuum, do they? And it's a sort of kind of gradual process, isn't it? Do you feel like you've reached it where you want to be now, or do you feel like there's still you're still finding new things?
Yeah, I'm always evolving, and I'm always searching for new inspiration. But yeah, my journey has been quite long, but I'm happy about that. So I suppose, I started out learning classical trumpet, but I always loved jazz. Jazz was played a lot in my house. My grandfather was a jazz trumpet player in the 50s, and also a record producer. So he really inspired me to pick up the instrument. And so I went through, college and university education, and took a master's in jazz at the Guildhall. And then it wasn't until my early 20s that I started to rediscover my mixed heritage. I wanted to somehow express my upbringing, who I am, through music, and I didn't really know how to do this. And I discovered this wonderful album called Blue Camel by Rabi Abdul Khalil. And I only picked this album up because it featured one of my favorite trumpet players of all time, which is Kenny Wheeler. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. It's got an oud player and some Arabic percussionists and some jazz players and Kenny. So I listened to it, and it was kind of like, I suppose, a eureka moment. I thought, I never thought you could mix those two musics together, and that definitely inspired me and encouraged me to create my own experiments with Middle Eastern scales and rhythms. And so it's been kind of like a long process of seeing what works, what doesn't work, and writing for my band with those ideas in mind. And then I've been discovering electronics,
right? Because it's like you've taken that almost one step further by introducing the electronics now as well, and all the kind of, I guess, would you call it sound design or soundscapes that kind of allows you to kind of play with in the music. It's fascinating. It's brilliant how you've tied those in. Well, look, let's play something for people, because some people might not be familiar with it. So this is something you've produced during the lockdown sessions, like a lot of us. You did your boiler room sessions, and was this a commission for somebody, or was this something that you just did yourself, or how did this come about? This event.
So they've been, during lockdown, they approached lots of different musicians and DJs because they wanted to put a series together of lockdown performances. Was supposed to also cheer people up. So So yeah, they got in touch with my manager, and they wanted me to put on a little concert at home. And I invited my partner to play with me, and we put some backing tracks together, and it worked really nicely. Yeah, so and tried to raise money for the World Food Organization, World Food Bank. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, yeah,
A
it
good
was really
cause.
lovely.
And we
Yeah.
should mention, of course, your partner that is none other than the amazing trumpet player Noel Langley, who hopefully will get on the show one evening, one day as well, and we'll have to feature him because he's had an incredible career as well. So, who was it that commissioned this? Who was this for? That created this? That got in touch with you? The World Food Bank.
No. It's so it's that was the charity.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you said that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But this is the Boiler Room, and they're like an online, I suppose, TV station kind of thing.
Right. I see.
Yeah, they have lots of concerts, but they also have concerts in unusual places, like in basements, and it's all televised, but on their channel.
Yes, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do
Fantastic.
concerts all over the world. A lot of it is electronic music, but they've also had people like Hermeto Pascual. He did a
Right.
Boiler Room session. So
Brilliant.
yeah, really cool.
So you're in good company there. Well, look, let's watch this. You've kindly provided the video of that, and this is a track that's called "Through Though My Eyes Go to Sleep, My Heart Will Not Forget You." That's absolutely beautiful idea. And what is this off an album, or was this something you just wrote for this particular session?
It's from my next album, my next studio album, which is coming out hopefully next year.
So we got a little exclusive there.
Yeah,
Thank you. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, the Boiler Room got in before us, I guess, of course. We have to credit them. But yeah, so this isn't out yet, but it might be coming out soon. Okay, well, look, let's play this. Though My Eyes Go to Sleep, My Heart Will Not Forget You, from the Boiler Room Lockdown Sessions, featuring my guests, Yazz Ahmed and Noel Langley. Here we go. Yes, fantastic. And back in live with us on YouTube, we got Yazz Ahmed, and yeah, fantastic, beautiful. So, and that's this is fascinating the way you do this. Okay, I've got so many questions to ask you that I want to know about, but also just to help people try to understand a little bit about what's going on when you're doing this, because you've got these mechanical, machines that you're using, and from what I can see, I mean, I could be completely wrong here, but what people don't perhaps might not appreciate from seeing that is that you're doing all that live, aren't you? It's and you're sampling your trumpet, so you're playing, and the machine is sampling it and then looping it back, and then you're altering it by using different processing effects on the sound. Is that right? Is that basically the kind of how it works?
Right. Yeah.
But you have other things pre-recorded in there as well, right? It's like, so there'll be samples on and loops that are maybe. So is it? I guess for people, one way of thinking of it could be like you're like a chef, and you got all the ingredients, and you're kind of, it's like you're doing a live cookery show, and you're doing it all, so it's going to be different each time as well, presumably, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the pieces that, in the boiler room session, some of them I already created a backing track to play on top of, but then I'm also using my electronics live, creating other things happening. But yeah, it's quite, there's so many things you have to think about when you're doing this actually live on stage.
I can't imagine, yeah.
And yeah, I've had to learn to multitask and stay calm, especially on stage at a gig, and you're playing really complex music, and you want to make sure the band is happy, and if anyone gets lost, you have to like be on top of that and say, we're here, and then do all this stuff over there and play the trumpet.
Right, which is not easy, and first of all, this is not easy music at all. People should realise, because there's different time signatures involved here, and scales and kind of quite complex harmony, and we'll get into about your quarter tone things in a bit. But like, just that must be very, very challenging. I'm just like thinking of all that, and then there's no net, is there, if something goes wrong? So what I'm interested in, something you said about people getting lost, right? So like, how prescribed is the arrangement? Is that something that's fixed? Like, it's going to be so many choruses, and then you're into the next section. Is that part of the backing track, or is that something you do on the fly as well?
Part of the backing track, it's fixed. Yeah. And so I've got to kind of remember when to stop improvising and stuff. But
so that makes it harder, doesn't it? And everyone's got to be really on it, because if you can't screw that up and go, oh, we'll have another go around that, can you? It's like, it's got to be. Wow, gosh.
But when it comes to my actual live gigs on stage, it's much more open. But there's the composed material, and that's all. Sorry, my cat is killing a bat, as in like a baseball bat.
Oh, I see. Right, yeah. I was thinking, quick, put that on the camera. We'll get a load of YouTube hits for that. Yeah. I'd like to see that myself. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, so when it comes to actually performing live with my bands, so we have the composed material, and that's all structured. Then what I like to do is we have the improvised sections, which are usually free. They're based around a chord sequence or just one scale, and sometimes it can just go anywhere. And I really like to encourage the band to express themselves, do their thing. Every night when we tour, every night we try and make the solo sections different compared to the previous night.
So with these bits, they're basically like open vamps at that section so things are looping until the next bit, and then you hit a trigger and you go to the next section.
Actually, I don't tend to use those backing tracks so much in my band.
So that's more live. It's real live, all going on at the same time, right? Interesting.
So I do use backing tracks, but it would only be like at the beginning of a piece and then take the backing track out, or in the middle of the piece. so that there's no restrictions, because it is hard. But when I do solo performance, it's all
Right.
backing track,
Of
and I
course.
can see it on the computer as well, so it makes it a bit easier.
Of course.
Um,
Sorry, we didn't make
yeah,
that clear because you've got these two sort of situations that you play in, don't you, as well? Sometimes it's just you, which
yeah,
means then you're using, yeah, I can see more track stuff. And then when you're
yeah,
playing with a band, you want that freedom. It's a fuller band, isn't it? And yeah, it's very clever. Yes, I can see why you would do that. That's brilliant. Yeah. Well, let's. You mentioned earlier you briefly talked about your getting started with your grandfather and everything early days, and then the college and things like that. And I mean, I guess it's just a bit of a once you get out of college, it's just a kind of slog, isn't it, for all of us? Really, those just years of just kind of keeping at it, isn't it, until things come along. Was there a point at which I mean, you mentioned this Kenny Wheeler album, but were there some gigs or some people that you met maybe that kind of were quite influential or helpful, or like that made a difference at those sort of points? Because it's easy to give up, isn't it, with this music game? It's so hard.
yeah,
Those years after college, I think that's the toughest bit. I always say to the students, if you can still be doing it 5 years after college, then you'll probably be doing it for the rest of your life. It's just that's the hardest bit, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. So yeah, I came out of college and I thought, now what? So, there's nothing. So I decided to do some peripatetic teaching. So I taught at the Merton Music Foundation, which is where I grew up, and I learnt the trumpet. And I did some work at Haringey Music Service. But all this time I wasn't really developing my own music, because I was doing teaching. So I had to make quite a bold decision and give up, a fairly nice pay to be poor and develop my craft.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's
so
good for you. Yeah.
it was hard, but
Yeah.
it did kick me up the bum. And I was writing for my band at the time, and we did some little gigs, like pub gigs, where like just one man and his dog came along, and you know,
And they ask you what time's the meat raffle. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
When's the football on? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Been there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, this is the progress. You have to kind of. I think it's important to learn these things and how
Yeah.
to grow, and
But
then
you put yourself in that situation to make
yeah,
yourself kind of focus, because it's very easy to get sidetracked, isn't it? And not keep that path of doing what you want to do with your own music. Yeah, that's very commendable. That.
yeah. And I mean, the major opportunities that were given to me came from the Tomorrow's Warriors. So
Right.
Gary Crosby and Janine Irons. They commissioned my first works because
Great.
they believed in me. They saw potential that I didn't see.
No.
And I also was asked to do Sirius. They do a educational artist development program called Take Five. And so
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was on that as
Right.
well. And
Yep.
so those two things really helped me to gain confidence and to realize that maybe I'm doing something that's interesting and I should carry on developing my craft. So yeah, I do owe a lot to Tomorrow's Warriors in particular, and Sirius, yeah, and they've really
Well,
helped
it's great,
me.
isn't it? Because it shows that these things, and they, we need to fund these things because that you're living proof of that it works, and artists and young musicians and particularly composers, you need that time, don't you, to just really get your thing together. College is a bit of a whirlwind, and you're sort of slung out onto the streets as it were. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, they do their best to help everybody and give you some, transferable skills or whatever. But these things take time to develop your voice as an artist and to achieve what you've done. You need that time just to be creative and try stuff out, and it might not work, and then try the next thing. And if there isn't that kind of breeding ground to ferment your ideas, then and those arts council funded things are so important, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, there we go. I've rattled the tin a bit there. So let's let's show something now. Well, I think this is a good link now, because this shows you, from that to last year, you won two fantastic awards. You swept the board, and with the Jazz FM Awards, you won Best Album of the Year and Best Jazz Act of the Year. Is that right? The double. I mean, incredible. It's fantastic, and it must have been such a great moment for you. And I was really pleased to see that. And then you performed. They did the ceremony was at ceremony, I guess. It's a funny word for it, but yeah, it's at Ronnie Scott's, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we've got some footage of you performing, and this is one of your solo pieces. So how did that? I mean, that must be quite a moment, going and accepting the top two awards, and then performing as well. How did that? I bet that was a good night, wasn't it? It must have felt great.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't told if I'd won anything. But I kind of assumed that maybe I'd won something, because they asked me to play, and
Right.
I think that would have been quite mean if they'd said, "Haha, you didn't win anything, but thank you for playing." So I didn't know I'd win two, so it was a real shock. It was genuine, shock, and it felt really wonderful, because I don't think particularly highly of myself, so it was just so wonderful to receive that recognition.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a really lovely night, and I was incredibly happy and grateful.
And also, we've got it recorded, so we're gonna see it now. We've got a video of you performing at having received your two awards, and this is live at Ronnie Scott's. This was last year? So when was it? Was it in September or something like that, or am I well off?
It was in October.
October.
The ceremony was supposed to be, I think, in March, April, something like that. But obviously, it had to be cancelled because of COVID. But yeah.
And was this socially distanced still? What was going on? Time's such a strange concept now. I can't remember what's happened over the last year. So there was a few people there, basically. It wasn't just an empty room.
No, there were three of the winners, and Marcus Brigstock, so the compare,
right,
and some of the people at Sirius working behind the scenes, and some people from Jazz FM, and the camera crew, obviously. So yeah, it was all, the audience, well, there was no audience, but yeah.
But it was a few people, it wasn't an empty space, Okay, right, fantastic. Well, this track you're playing here is called Forest Bathing. And is this from an album, or is this something you wrote for that piece or for that event, or how did this piece come about?
So it came from an improvisation that I did for a friend's radio show. So my friend Hector Plimmer, who is a UK producer, drummer, DJ, he remixed one of my tracks from Les Saboteurs. He remixed The Lost Pearl. And he asked me if I could contribute to his show that he was putting together for Worldwide FM. And so I recorded a little improvisation, and built a kind of track around it, and that's where it was born. And so I kept the backing track, and I played on top of it in a similar kind of way for the performance, and yeah, that's what you hear.
Great. Okay. And so this is you solo with your electronics at Ronnie Scott's. Here we go then. Forest Bathing.
Let's hear from our winner with her own composition, Forest Bathing. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Yazz Ahmed. Incredible, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Yazz Ahmed there. Absolutely wonderful. Deserving our PRS for Music UK Jazz Act of the Year.
I hope you're enjoying the show. I just want to take a moment to tell you about a new way that you can help support me do this, and that is through patreon.com. That's right, I've got an account now, so the link's below here, patreon.com Buster Birch, and if you go along to there, you can now make donations by Visa credit card, so you don't have to use PayPal if you don't want to do that. And the advantage of Patreon is that once you do it once, it will automatically deduct on a per show basis. So instead of having to fill in the forms every week, if you want to make a regular donation, then that will just automatically deduct straight to your credit card each per show. And that is hugely helpful to me because it means I know that I've got a certain amount coming in every time I do a show, and that really helps me plan ahead and keeps the viable sustainability of the show going. There's two levels of sponsorship. There's my silver and gold membership. All of my Patreon supporters will get a big thank you personally from me live on the show, and the gold member sponsors will get an additional Spotify playlist which will be sent to you each week. It's something that I'm putting together. It's personally curated by me and will feature lots more albums by the guest artists each week. So it's a great opportunity to get to know this music much better. If you're really enjoying the show and you like the little tasters that you're hearing, that's a great way to get to know this music even more and enjoy in full comfort the full sound of the full albums. Thanks very much. Back to the show. Yes, that's right. We're live on YouTube and I'm here with Yazz Ahmed. Oh, do you know what, Yazz? I've got to say, I'm very sorry, but I haven't said hello to anyone in the chat box. We've been chatting away and I haven't mentioned anyone. So, Peter Gore's here and Laurie and Paul, Steve Clark, Mary Proudluck, Peter Gibbs is in. Oh, my mate Pete, he's a trumpet player. I'm sure he'll be enjoying this. David Stacey, hi David, all the way from Northern California, tuning in. And Tony was here. He said it was great to see Yazz and her band in a small venue in Derby a couple of years back. Do you remember that? Derby, yeah?
Yeah.
And Guildford Jazz Boiler Room, Peter Gore says. Ricky Martin's in the house. Great. And Liz Norton's here. Hi Liz, how you doing? And Anne Trula. Oh, that's Sally's here. Great. So fascinating. So obviously a lot of nice comments there. Beautiful. Someone says beautiful trumpeting. Love the bagpuss at the end. David says he's clapping. Yeah. Love your little video shot. Yeah. So thank you everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for leaving the comments. If you've got any questions for Yazz, pop them in there and I'll try and ask them as well. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Yazz, is composing, because that's kind of who you are as well as a trumpet player, and I wondered if that's something is that something you've always done? Because composing's I think there are musicians and there are composers, isn't there? And there are a few that are kind of both, and I think it's, I don't know. Do you think it's something is it something that you had to? I mean, obviously you had to work on it, but is it something that comes natural? Is it something that you've always done, or is it something that you decided you want to do and then I'm going to work towards that, or a bit of all those things?
Yeah, I think it is a bit of all those things, but when I was studying, I never imagined myself being a composer. I think it kind of comes down to my education. So at GCSE level, we didn't learn about any jazz composers. There were no women composers on the syllabus. Right. So I automatically felt like, okay, so maybe women don't become composers, maybe they're not intelligent enough. And so it was just not an option for me. And then
it's very important, that, isn't it? Because it's subconscious, isn't it? And it seeps into sort of children's kind of thinking in a subconscious way. So it's very important to expose children to all sorts of things. Yes, good point.
Yeah. And I think that really affected me. So it wasn't until, like I said, when I started kind of rediscovering my roots, that I wanted to, create music that represented me. And then, you know, I got these opportunities from Tomorrow's Warriors, and that's when I started to develop my writing. I kind of developed it as I went. You know, I didn't have any actual composition lessons. I had you know, the odd kind of one-to-one lesson that was paid for by Tomorrow's Warriors, and I had some tuition from the LSO Sound Hub scheme. But yeah, I think I just fell into it basically, and I learned on the job, you know, learning to write for instruments I hadn't written for. And yeah, I love it, and it's so wonderful to be able to express stories and experiences through music. You know, it's very special.
Well, that's the bottom line, isn't it? Because there's the whole kind of craft of composing, and I suppose if somebody were to say, right, I want to be a composer, I've got to go for some lessons, and they'll teach you about counterpoint and harmony and pastiche and writing the style of this and that and the other. But that's not going to teach you to find your own necessary. Oh, I mean, I guess it depends on the teacher, but what it seems to me that the composing came as a result of you drawing to finding your voice and to play the music you want to play. So, well, I've got to write some music to play it. Is that kind of like that kind of way around, isn't it? Yeah. It's very interesting that seems like a very honest approach as well to expressing your music. I think that's quite interesting, as opposed to. I mean, it's not to say it's not dishonest to do that. I don't know what I mean by that, but do you know what I mean? It's like there's different composing. I've talked about it before on this show about with jazz, because it's very interesting, jazz composing, because sometimes as a composer, well, you get a lot of commissions now, right? But what they're buying is you and your sound, so they already know who you are when you get the commission. So what they want is like another one of your kind of pieces. So you're at the point now where you're very established as an artist and as a voice. So when they commission you, they're expecting a certain thing from you, which is your music, right? But there's another type of commission where someone says, right, I want a big band arrangement in the style of, you know, whatever. And that's another whole job, isn't it? And then there's another type of composing where people compose for their band and they're writing for their bandmates, and they kind of know who's going to play it, and then that inspires the composition as well. So there's all these different facets of being a composer, isn't it? I don't think people necessarily appreciate that, but what you're doing is quite special, because you're creating your own music as well as composing the pieces. I think that's quite different, isn't it? It's not like a. Do you think? I don't know. Or maybe it's just the way, I guess it's a kind of organic evolution, isn't it, of what you've developed as an artist.
Exactly. And I think when I was studying jazz, it never felt true to me. You know, I'm not an American trumpet player, so it didn't really feel like it was very authentic. You know, me trying to sound like these American great trumpet players, and I think that also kind of left me feeling empty and wanting to search for something more personal.
It's interesting you mentioned Kenny Wheeler, though, because of course, famously, you know, great composer as much as a player, probably equal, or even more so known if he's composing as he's playing. Even, I mean, I don't know, it's not a competition, but like the two things go very much in hand with him, don't they? Yeah. So we've got a track you've provided. We're going to play now, called Ruby Bridges, which I'm assuming is dedicated to Ruby Bridges, the person, not a bridge you saw somewhere. No, I'm being silly, because very famously, of course, she's the great civil rights activist, and that she was that sweet, beautiful little girl who was the first one into the school, wasn't it? And the segregation. It's a big, heavy story, that, and they had to get the National Guard out or something. She had to face an angry mob, and people. I think there's a recent documentary about her, isn't there, as well, about her teacher. Have you seen that? It was this beautiful and they just spent a lot. It was just the two of them, because she was on her own in the classroom. Yeah. And of course, actually, Mingus wrote about that, didn't he? Because that was the Governor Forbes thing, wasn't it? Fables of Forbes. Yeah. Fables of Forbes. Yeah. So yeah, really pretty inspiring stuff. So this is a track called Ruby Bridges. Now, the other thing you've been doing is you've got this fantastic artwork for your albums that you've collaborated with, and you've got this artist working with you. What's her name? We should mention her. I'm sorry, I've forgotten it. You told me earlier.
Her name is Sophie Bass.
Sophie Bass, and they're really quite striking, aren't they? They're beautiful pieces of art. And how does she produce those? Are they paintings and then you scan it, or does she do it digitally, or what's her kind of medium?
So it's actually felt tip markers on paper.
Oh, that's nice and cheap, isn't it? Yeah. Great, yeah. No Apple Macs required there. Yeah, I like that.
It's amazing. And basically the originals don't last because they fade because of the felt tips. So she gets them copied or scanned. I don't know how she does it professionally, so that she can print them out and digitalize them. Wow. But yeah, I think it's quite unique, sort of self-destructing art. yeah,
like an ice sculpture or something almost. Yeah. Brilliant, yeah. And so do you kind of give her some ideas? I mean, she's obviously got a style that's very striking, isn't it? Well, we'll see some, because you've given us a whole range of these things. So we're going to see the artwork with a slideshow. But I believe Apple have picked up on these as well. What's the story with that? You've done a few Apple iPhone ads, is that right?
Yeah,
amazing.
So I know, it's quite surreal. So Apple in the Middle East, they picked up on the artwork of Polymnia, so my third album, and so they feature it on all their adverts for the Apple Watch and the whatever the latest phone is, and Apple also commissioned me to write something for an Instagram ad where they collaborated with a film director based in Oman, so still part of the Middle Eastern region for Apple. So that was really special, and it's nice that a big tech, giant have, taken notice of.
Well, I can see why. I mean, it's like you've got this perfect, you've got this, you're incredibly hip. You've got this wonderful hip music. You've got the Middle Eastern kind of sound, so I can see how that would think, and this incredible artwork as well. I mean, it's they're smart. They know what they're doing. These people, so they can they're buying into a bit of you. I can see, and that's actually it's fantastic. I mean, of course, and what that does then, that helps with bring your music to a new audience as well, doesn't it? And
definitely.
Well, look, let's play this track. So there's 3 albums, is that right? Is it there's that you've done of your own stuff, and this is from the latest one, which is called Polymnia. How do you say that?
It's pronounced Polymnia, but
Polymnia,
it's spelt Polyhymnia.
It's Polymnia.
Named after the Greek goddess Polymnia, who is the goddess of sacred art, poetry, and music.
Wonderful. Well, let's listen to a bit of that. So this is an audio chat, and we've got some pictures as well, including some artwork and some of you playing live as well. And this is Ruby Bridges, dedicated to Ruby Bridges. Yeah, that well, we've caused some real confusion now, haven't we? Because we've just realised that actually that's the remixed version. So we were going to get onto remixes and talk about that, but yeah, very heavy on the beats on that version, which has been changed quite a lot. So if you do want, it'd be very interesting for you folks to check out the band version of the original version of the album, which is on the Spotify playlist. So Yazz has got her albums on Spotify, and if you're a Patreon member, then you'll be sent those Spotify playlists as well. Yeah, see what I did there? So yeah, so what we just heard was a remix. Now let's talk a little bit about this, because this is very exciting that you've been getting involved with. So for those people that are not aware, tell us about what remixes are, and I mean, it's massive. It's a whole massive other scene, isn't it? And global scene as well.
Yeah, so I like to think of remixes as reimaginations. So this is my second remix EP. The first one was a remix, just 3 tracks, and one that Noel and I did from Les Saboteurs. And then this one is, there are 4 tracks, yeah, from Polymnia. And so how the process works is I did a lot of research looking into electronic artists that I felt I really connected with, that I enjoyed their music, and I thought that they could create something very interesting and not just like have a boom, boom, boom kind of beat underneath, just to be more creative and also respect my music at the same time. So, I got in touch with the artists that are on the EP, and what we do is I send them, they choose a track, whichever track they want to reimagine, and I send them all the individual stems, so like the horns, the bass, my solo line, etc. And so it's like little pieces of paper, I suppose you can imagine. And so the remixer will chop up these bits of paper and sort of line them up, and they might add some effects and change the speed and put their own drums or their own bass parts in to change it up a bit and make it fit their vision. And I really like that version of Ruby Bridges. If you know the original, I wrote it as a sort of a second line New Orleans kind of feel, with kind of sinister chords underneath. And it's got quite a swing to it. Whereas this one, it's very different, more kind of, I don't know how you'd describe it. I suppose there's some Arabic grooves in there, and it's more clubby, but he's kept a lot of the original horn lines there as well, if you can hear. And he does modulate my flugel solo, so it's like super high, which is quite fun. But I should also say that the person who remixed Ruby Bridges is a DJ called DJ Plead, and he is half Swiss, half Lebanese, and he lives in Australia. Right. Yeah, I think he's done a fantastic job, really elegant arrangement, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and it's a whole. It's almost like it becomes another genre, doesn't it? Of the piece. So you take the piece, and then they really and of course this is done completely with your blessing, as they say. And you don't know what they're going to do with it. You don't. So you've recorded your composition with your band and produced your album and your version of it, and then you essentially give them all the individual tracks from your studio session. So it's not like they just they go and get a CD and then chop it up on the computer. They get all the individual channels, and you give them freedom to do their thing on it, which is very brave, I think. I mean, I guess presumably you got the veto at the end of it, haven't you? Or is there a lot of backwards and forwards on it, or just kind of let them get on with it and then they see what it comes out at the end?
Yeah, I let them have the freedom to do whatever they want, but I do get the final say. So they'll send me, some people send me the draft, and they'll say, is this okay? Is this the sort of thing you're thinking of? And I've never said, no. The only feedback I had for one person was, can you make it 1 minute longer, maybe? But yeah, I've been
Right.
really, really impressed and wowed by the results of everyone who's remixed my music. Because yeah, really
I
great.
guess you have to do that. I mean, like you said you research them, so you know kind of their style, their thing a little bit as well. So a bit like if you were to get a commission from an organisation, they're going to commission you. They know kind of what you do and what your sound is a bit. But ultimately you have to let them do their thing, don't they? If you're sort of like constantly micromanaging in it, then it's not a remix, is it? It's a sort of I guess you could have a collaboration, but that I think that's very interesting to have that kind of idea where you can just give your music over to somebody, let them do that. I don't think that's very common in the jazz world, for certainly, and in a lot of places. I think I don't know why. I mean, it obviously can work, can't it? I guess it's just a different process. More. I guess because you're using that, you're coming from that point of view, electronics, aren't you? It's core to your music. So it's not like somebody just records a bebop album and then gives it to a DJ. That kind of wouldn't necessarily. Well, I don't know. Maybe it would work. Maybe there's something there, but don't see why it wouldn't. But I guess it depends who it is. But there is that sort of inbuilt. You're using these soundscapes. It's electronic. The electronic sounds are a real integral part of your music in the original incarnation of it. So I guess it's just one more on, isn't it? From one more step on from that. It's fascinating. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and I also, the other thing is I really enjoy collaborating with others and bringing different audiences and different types of music together, this idea of working with electronic artists was encouraged by the person who signed me to Name Records for my second album. His name is Charlie Jungle Shaver. And he gave me this kind of idea, and he helped me, choose the artists and everything. And it's something I thought, do you think jazz and electronic music, do you think that would work? And it seems like it does. And it's really nice because people who think that they don't like jazz, they have suddenly, discovered all this new music. And same with people who, I mean, I never really knew much about electronic music until these projects. And, there's lots of really interesting stuff out there. Some very experimental, some very mainstream,
Well, also, I think sometimes because these people are approaching it from, I mean, with it's easy to be snobbish with music, isn't it, really? And if the people haven't studied and they're not coming from that kind of sort of like standard model of composition or whatever, but what happens then is they're not bound by those restrictions, are they? So they just hear it as sound and music, and then they're kind of almost free to do whatever they want with it. I remember my wife, Jo, my wife, she worked with some dancers once, and they were doing a piece, and I can't remember what it was. It was Caravan or something, and they were choreographing some movements, and she was playing the thing, and they said, "Oh well, no, we're just going to chop that bit out." She goes, "What do you mean the bridge?" She goes, "Oh, don't play that." And she's like, "What do you mean you can't not play the bridge?" And they're like, "Why not?" And then Joe was like, "Well, yeah, why not? Actually, why not? Yeah, then it just works. It's fine." And so sometimes people that are not from that. The conservatoire, classical kind of tradition, they're not bound by that, so they can reimagine these things in very different, interesting ways, and come up with things that perhaps you wouldn't have thought of in the first place. Because you're just coming at it from such different kind of angles. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting that, and also this thing of just uniting people, isn't it? Sort of making a connection through music is amazing. I've had some incredible experiences of just connecting with people through music. And to me, that's the real true power of music. The meaning and power of music is that we have a sort of connection, which, you may not even speak the same language or have anything in common at all. You can be on the other side of the world, and, sometimes it's just like they give you a little like that, don't they? Or something. Do you know what I mean? Or it can be really quite a deep sort of emotional connection, can't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazing. That's, to me, the magic of music. That's really what it is. Right. We've got to play another. Well, look. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to. Sorry, I'm looking at the time, but we're doing fine. So there's something else that you've been doing very interesting with this trumpet that you've got, which is a quarter tone trumpet. Now, can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that something that you've sort of collaborated with, come up with, or was that a pre-existing instrument that you sort of discovered, or is it like an invention thing, or? And presumably it enables you to play some of these Arabic scales with their different tuning systems. So perhaps we could explain that a little bit for people.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it's actually a quarter tone flugelhorn.
Flugelhorn, sorry.
Yeah, and it was it came from the commission I had with the LSO Sound Hub scheme. So it's a scheme to help emerging composers, and you apply for it, you send out an idea, and my idea was to write for this instrument that hadn't been made yet, and to explore quarter tones and how they might work with Western tuned instruments. And to also, at the same time, create music that was inspired by the building, LSO St. Luke's, which is where the LSO rehearse and perform.
I've worked there, yeah, I know it very well. It's a church, isn't it? They put the whole new roof on it, and it's like a dilapidated old church, and they took the shell and they put this incredible, and they've turned it into this incredible art centre. Yeah, I do a few things there with Howard Moody, who was on the show recently, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Yeah, so my idea was accepted, and I got the commission, and so I had to make this instrument. So
you had to find someone to make this. You made it, or you find someone to make it for you?
I luckily there's a person who lives near me called Lee McKinney, and he is of Eclipse Trumpets, and he makes my trumpets and my flugelhorns. And he is an absolute genius, and so he helped me develop this instrument. A lot
of people are playing Eclipse trumpets. We should give them a shout out, aren't they? They're absolutely amazing instruments, and made here in London. Is it? Well, just outside London, isn't he? But he's like,
it's in Luton. Yeah.
Great. I've heard a lot of good things about Eclipse trumpets. A lot of people I know playing them. So sorry, I thought I'd big them up a bit.
Yeah, thank you. Well, they are beautiful instruments and all custom made, for the player. So he had no idea how to make a quarter tone flugelhorn, and obviously I didn't. So
you'd never, it wasn't something you'd seen, you just thought, I want to do it, and so there isn't an instrument that can play this, so I'll get one made. That's amazing.
There is a quarter tone trumpet, which
I see.
Yeah, a trumpet player called Ibrahim Malouf is famous for playing, but I don't think there was a flugelhorn made. So that's the challenge. And obviously, Lee, he'd never made one before, so he had to figure out how to do this. And so what he did was he added an extra valve. So it's 4 valves instead of 3. And so this extra valve kind of sticks out that way, and I play it with the left hand. And when I press it down, whatever note I'm playing, it flattens it a quarter tone. And for those who don't know, quarter tones are the notes in between the semitone.
In the cracks, yes.
Exactly. In the cracks.
Yes.
So
hang on. So presumably you had to learn how to play this instrument as well.
Yes, but I only had to learn what I wrote, so that's fine.
Holy moly!
So yes, it's a lovely instrument, and it definitely taught me a lot about tuning and how to approach the notes with your breath, your air. So what I mean is, when we play brass instruments, when you hear a note that's out of tune, we naturally try and tune it either up or down by using our mouth. Not being used to playing quarter tones, when I played these quarter tones on the instrument, I was trying to retune the note. So, and then, and that sounds awful. So I had to learn to just play through the instrument and accept that that's the quarter tone, and to not kind of, make any stress in my mouth.
So you're
Yeah.
fighting all your kind of training of years and years of playing trumpet and all that classical training. You're kind of going against all that to relearn that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
Gosh.
and it's made me realize that semitones are actually a really big interval. I never thought that they were really until, learning to play this instrument. It's,
I
yeah, really
guess it's all
fascinating.
relative. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a lovely instrument, and I've written 2 other pieces for it. So I've written 3 pieces for the instrument. So I don't play it very often, but when I get it out, it's a real joy to play.
Wow, yeah, it's incredible. Well, and what we're going to play, we've got a film now. So this is something you did during lockdown again, and it's you and Noel again. But this was a commission for the New York Festival of New Trumpet Music. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this was from September, was it last year? Fantastic. So we're going to play this, and I've kept a little clip in at the beginning just to give a credit to the festival people, just if people want to see more about that, and then it cuts into you. So this is another one of your. This is a piece called "A Moment to Be Free." Now there's a little bit of bird songs in this as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that part of the inspiration for the quarter tones and the birds singing and having these different tunings and things?
So the piece is it was inspired by nature, and during this time of pause, one of the few things that have kept me going is nature. I live in the countryside, so going on long country walks and clearing my mind has helped me to calm my anxiety and to clear my head for creative space. And so what I did is in my garden, because you can't hear any airplanes or traffic, all you can hear is nature, and the birds are so loud, which is great.
Especially first thing in the morning in the summer. Yeah, it gets a bit noisy, doesn't it? Yeah. It's amazing how loud that can be. Yeah.
I know. So I thought, okay, I love this, whatever this bird is. I think it was a blackbird. So I sat in the garden and I just recorded the birds on my phone. And
right. Was it an iPhone?
Yeah.
Sorry. I better get that in.
Yes.
Not a Samsung. I must have mentioned them. Yeah.
No.
Sorry.
That's okay. And so I took the recordings back and I made loops out of them and created some rhythms out of the bird songs, and that inspired the melodies as well. So, and also I suppose I just wanted to write for the quarter tone flugelhorn because I thought it's a trumpet festival, and I think a lot of trumpet players would really enjoy seeing and hearing that instrument. So yeah, that's it really.
Right, well, let's hear it. This is A Moment to Be Free. And here we go. Fantastic, yeah. And that was my guest Yazz Ahmed with Noel Langley, and she was playing the what do you call it, the quarter tone flugelhorn.
Yes.
So
That's
where
correct.
do people Eclipse trumpets? If you want to buy one of those, folks, and that's where you get them from. It's amazing, and I love that idea of using the bird song. And it seems to me like the sort of thing is you're constantly sort of freeing yourself of like sort of standard traditional kind of, I guess, Western music theory or harmony, whatever. And your approach to music, I think, is really, really interesting and really refreshing, because you're taking all these things and you're putting them together, and you're making it work. You're making it work as music in your own way, and I think that's really commendable. And as an artist, of course, that's kind of the goal, isn't it? As an artist, like that's what the goal is. I think you've really, it's incredible, and it's great to see you getting on so well and being so successful with it as well. Of course, there's a few comments in the chat box. I think we're better say hi to a few more people in there. Yeah, lots of nice comments. People are really enjoying it. Hi, Brian from Normandy said he's really enjoying the show, and Steve says that was a bit special. Yeah, indeed it was. Indeed. And somebody asked about your machine you've got. It's called a Chaos Pad, isn't it? So perhaps you could just briefly explain again what that. So that again, we saw it there, didn't we? So you've got the mic is recording what you're playing as you're playing it in real time, and then it's feeding it back out into the sound, but with the effects on. And then what you're doing is you're kind of messing about with that as you're doing it. I guess is that how it works?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's got lots of other effects on it as well. And what you can't see is I've also got another pedal on the floor. But the Chaos Pad is it's kind of like a sound manipulator. Yeah, it has the pad, and it's always listening. The microphone's always listening. So it will pick up whatever you're playing. So, if you play a phrase and you think, oh, I'd love that to accompany me, or I'd love to hold that note while I play something on top of it, you just go "Bup," and so
it's like it holds that note, and then you can play something else over the top. I see. I didn't realize that.
I like to think of it as a second voice, so sometimes I can accompany myself, or I can mangle the sound so it sounds like something really nasty as well. It's a really fun, I see it as an instrument, so it's really fun to play. And
well, you use it. And has it got loop points? Do you do like little loops in and out as well, or is it just you hold it to, how does that work?
You can sample loops live, and there is a card where you can program your own, but it's very old technology. Actually, it's quite an old machine. It has an SD card, and it's not really proper digital. But I mean, I'm not that great with looping, but I'm very good with like making textures, when it comes to rhythmic looping. I find that really difficult with that machine. With other machines it's a bit easier, but that one is quite, I mean, it's created for DJs really, but it's quite, like the name, it's very chaotic. As a Chaos Pad, sometimes it doesn't do what you expect it to do.
But it seems to me like what you're using it, I mean, from what you're saying and what I can see from that, is that you're using it as an instrument. It's not like a laptop where you're just, it's not like just a bit of technology. You've taken this thing and you've embedded it into your music, and it's an instrument. And like you say, it's giving you another voice. So I think that's really a really interesting way to use that technology and incorporate it in a musical way. I think you've really been successful with that. It's amazing, brilliant. So I guess the time's kind of marching on. We've got another piece we're going to play. Well, we're going to play out on this, and so did you want to tell us about this last piece that you've brought for us to share?
Yeah, so this is called Dawn Patrol, and it was another commission during lockdown, and the commission was from an online TV channel called Adult Swim, and they have a dedicated music channel to their online sort of programs and stuff.
But it's not about swimming, is it? I asked you that earlier, but no, that's just because people might think that. I mean, But it's the name of the channel. It's just something, I don't know, but it's not
really,
swimming.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called Adult Swim, but
Right.
yeah, that's what it is. And they have dedicated playlists where they
MTV was probably already taken, wasn't it, as a domain name? So they went for that. Yeah.
So they wanted to create a playlist of jazz music of the 21st century. So it's called New Jazz Century, I think. So they commissioned a selection of jazz musicians who they thought were doing interesting things at the time, and they commissioned me, which is really lovely. And this piece of music, I wrote it for myself and Noel, so there's multiple trumpet parts. I also created lots of loops using my trumpet because, you know, at home we couldn't go to a studio, and so, you know, it gave me the opportunity to learn extra skills, you know, using my computer, using Logic. So, and I wrote this drum part for Josh Blackmore, who is a wonderful drummer, plays, his band is Troika, if you haven't heard of it.
Yeah, great,
yeah, so he played the drum parts, recorded them at home, and the guitar parts were played by Samuel Helkvist, who I collaborate with a lot. He's Swedish, he lives in Denmark. And yeah, so it was amazing. Thanks to technology, you know, I could send these parts over to my friends to record, and they sent them back, and I, you know, put them all in the computer. And I also learned to do programming. So you'll hear synthesizers that are just on the computer. I affected them, and
so creating the sounds as opposed to just playing them.
Yeah, and also some of the loops I made are actually from my phone, because how I composed the piece was Adult Swim. They sent me a mood board of the artwork that they were thinking about incorporating for this playlist, and so I looked at the different pieces of art, and I just improvised along to them and recorded them and took the ideas I liked and put them into the computer. Some of them I re-recorded because the sound on a phone doesn't sound very good. But some of them I heavily processed, and you'll hear that in the middle section of the piece, the kind of, you can imagine being underwater in this section. It's about surfing, this piece. Dawn Patrol is a term used by surfers to surf at dawn, which is the perfect time to surf, apparently. But yeah,
there's probably no one else on the beach to get in your way, is there?
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I'm thinking of here is, so this is an online TV channel. Instead of just copying some music and making a playlist, they're actually commissioning artists to create new music for them, and they're doing a proper job and getting, you know, mood boards and everything. It sounds great. It's good that they're doing that, isn't it? And again, you know, you've really given them something great with this, and I can see why they come to you, of course, you know. And when was this? This is, sorry, you said this was in the lockdown kind of scenario, yes?
Yeah.
Recently?
So, yeah, it was released September, 2020. Right. Or October 2020, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've certainly made the most of this year, haven't you, by the sounds of it? You've been keeping yourself very busy, which is great. And we look forward to, you know, seeing you back on the road. And have you got anything coming in yet? I had a couple of gigs coming this week, so that was a good sign. And certainly the summer school's getting a lot of inquiries. So I think there's confidence is growing. I think perhaps this summer, I mean, assuming we don't get another blooming wave of it, but I think things could really be busy again this summer and this year. Have you got much coming? Have you got anything lined up for this year?
I have, but everything's so up in the air. A lot of my work is in Europe, so there's the travel, there's the B word.
Let's not even go there.
Yeah, so it's all, you know, and obviously there's countries in Europe that are having, you know, their third or second waves, and but I have some really exciting stuff, you know, in this country coming up. One that I'd love to talk about, but I can't at the moment.
No, it's all right, it's fine. I'm sure.
something special.
Yeah.
At the end of the year. But yeah, it does seem like people are
Wonderful.
being more optimistic, and I think it's, you know, thankfully because of the vaccine and
Yeah.
so hopefully it won't be too much longer and we can all enjoy music again with
Yeah.
other people in the same room.
Yeah, it is quite. I mean, I did something very recent with Alison, and the band played together for the first time in a year, and it was quite an emotional experience. It really was. I felt really kind of like, oh. But what struck me is we just clicked. It's just straight back. It was really weird. I thought, oh no, we're gonna have to like do a load of rehearsals. But it was just like that, you know. But we've, you know, that band's worked and played a lot. So, but I think I feel quite positive about what's coming up now. I think we're through the worst of it. So, well, thank you, Yazz. It's been fascinating, and it's been really great having you on the show. And thank you for sharing your time and your lovely music. I knew it would be great, and lots of lovely comments. I knew people would like it. It's very exciting what you're doing, and as I said already, it's brilliant to see you doing so well. It's very well deserved. I know how hard you work, and it's hard work, isn't it? And it's years and years and years of it. You know, that's that's the secret. Someone told me once. I remember an old jazz musician friend. He said, "Buster, you know the secret to jazz." I said, "What's that?" He said, there's only one hard thing about being a musician. I said, "What's that?" He said, "The first 20 years."
Yeah.
That was it, yeah. And it's true, isn't it? Like once you get past that, the rest of it's easy. Well, it's not easy. It's never easy, but you've been really, you know, slogging away, and you've worked so hard, and it's fantastic to see you really getting all these great accolades which you deserve, and you're doing some really interesting creative music and blending all these genres and doing it so well, and you know, making new instruments and combining the elements. It's incredible, Yazz, and you know, long may you keep at it. It's really great. So thank you, and thank you, and of course, as I said, we'll try. Perhaps we'll get Noel on one week as well, because I know he's done a load of interesting stuff as well. So I'd love to feature Noel. So give him a heads up on that. I'll be in touch with him soon.
Great stories.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So okay, folks. Well, look, what we'll do is we'll play out on this, and thank you to everyone in the chat. It's really nice to see you on here, and take care of yourselves. Next week, I've got Karen Sharp, fantastic tenor saxophone player, composer as well. Just, you know, great all-round jazz, you know, hard swinging and contemporary modern jazz as well. So look forward to that. There'll be some great music as always next week. Do check out the link, and if you have enjoyed the show and enjoyed the music, then please do consider a donation. It's very much appreciated at the moment, and all the donations are shared with the artists, the guests, and yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Once again, thank you, Yazz. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure. And we're going to play out with this track, Dawn Patrol. And once again, we've got some pictures featuring your lovely artwork, as well as some live gigs as well. So, and if you want to find out any more about Yazz, I'll put her website in the link below, and the Patreons will get the link to Spotify. But I'm sure you're very easy to track down on the social media world, Yazz. I'm sure you're people can find you very easily if they want to find out more of your music. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care of yourselves, and see you soon. Good night.
Bye.